So many of you have sent me messages talking about loneliness and how you struggle with loneliness and being a Christian and following Jesus. You don't have a lot of friends. So I'm going to tell you a story. God's story, number 5. So I completely understand the loneliness that you're dealing with, because when I met Jesus, I lost all my friends and family. Everyone thought I was nuts. I went from doing drugs and partying every weekend in bars and just acting a fool to all I could talk about was Jesus and, inviting people to Bible study on my house on Friday nights instead of going to the bar. So needless to say, they wanted nothing to do with me. I remember some of them blocked me on Facebook and everything. So one day I started praying and I just said, Lord, I'm lonely. I need a friend. I need someone like me that loves you like I do. And I just kept praying for friends. And this is what happened. One morning I heard the Lord speak to me and he said, call Peggy and ask her to meet you at the campground to pray in town. Now, he gave me her last name, but I'm not going to share that on here. But anyway, so I knew of Peggy. I had seen her around church, but I had never had a conversation with her, definitely didn't have her phone number. So I messaged one of the women that we went to church with, and I was like, hey, do you have Peggy's number? And she was like, yeah. So I called Peggy, and before I called her, I'm like, Lord, this woman is going to think I'm crazy. And so I called Peggy and I was like, hey, this is Shauna Mitchell. You probably don't know me. And she's like, yeah, I've seen you around. And I was like, the Lord told me to call you and tell you that we're supposed to meet at the Beulah Heights campground in the morning at 5:30 to pray. And she was like, what are we praying about? And I said, I don't know. He didn't tell me. And she just chuckled and she goes, okay, I'll see you in the morning. So the next morning I get the kids up, 5 a.m. There we go to the campground in town. And this was a church campground. And so we had no idea what we was praying about, but we just walked the campground, prayed, we prayed in the Spirit. And all of a sudden the Lord gave us a word. And he said, repent for the water lines. And we're like, repent for the water lines. So we start repenting for the water lines. Like, we have no idea why we're doing it, but we start repenting for the water lines. And after we was done praying, we got in our cars and we left, and we had no idea what had just happened. But from that moment on, Peggy has been my friend for 12 years. She has walked with me, and she is the most precious gift of being a friend that I could have ever prayed for. So a couple of months later, Peggy calls me and she says, it was cold outside, and she said, open the door. She said, I got something to show you. Well, she had went to the library and she had been researching this campground. Come to find out, years ago, the campground had closed because they had a water line sewage problem, and it was going to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix. And they split because they couldn't agree, because a group of people wanted to go and get a loan to pay for it, and another group of people on the board wanted to pray about it and wait for God to fix the water lines. So in the end, they ended up getting the loan. They couldn't pay for it, and the loan got foreclosed on. But guess what? The campground is back up and running and has been for years. They open it every summer for a youth camp. So look, this is what I'm telling you guys. Like, it is fun to serve God. It is exciting. Even when it sounds crazy. I mean, we were out there that day praying that morning thinking, what in the world? Are we really hearing God? You never know. You just have to be obedient. That is what God is looking for. He is looking for obedience. Because what does he say? He says, you don't know my thoughts. We have no idea the things that God knows. And all he needs is people that will listen, be obedient, and pray when he tells us to. So that's the story of how God sent me Peggy. I love that story. And I pray today that God will send you a Peggy in your life. I want you to pray, guys. Ask God to send you a friend that will run beside you